That's interesting. Oh, well. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming and hanging out with me. Welcome to Lore Equals Gameplay, episode 23. Don't know. Actually, I don't think I've only covered the Loremakers community questions once or twice, maybe. But this popped up this week, and I was like, "Oh, I've got another week or two until the Galactopedia update comes out." But Loremakers community questions is always a really good source of information. A lot of really good questions get covered here, and it really gets overlooked a lot. And I think that's kind of criminal because, like, for example, everybody when everyone talks about regeneration in Star Citizen, they always go back to the original lore narrative team, explanation about regeneration. But then since then, they've answered like 3 different questions on regeneration or about regeneration and everything. Via Lore Makers community questions, and there's been a bunch of additional info and reiteration of different things that is really important for the context surrounding Star Citizen, and its design and what their intent is. And so I think it's important to cover, these comm links that the narrative team puts out. And it's just good reading. It's good to hear where they're coming from, what their design intent is, what other ideas they have. A lot of time, they, just like with everything else, they won't paint the gameplay teams into a corner or anything like that. But they will, provide some clarifying statements. They'll elaborate on things, and there's always really good links dropped into the answers. So if you want looking for additional reading or information, that you might not have read, that's always a good place to do it. So I enjoy covering it. This one isn't particularly long. So I'm just gonna stream for a little bit on this, and then call it a night. You might just do a little bit of Q&A afterwards. But it does have some good little good little answers in here, and some other things that we should take a look at while we go through it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and switch screens, and we're going to get into the lore window, the one where I have my my fun little background. So let's go ahead and switch screens. Okay, that's odd. For some reason, I don't think that I could hear the transition noise in my headphones, but I didn't see it playing in the audio mixer. But then my lead-in video, my sort of waiting screen video, I couldn't hear that in my headphones, but it was playing in the audio mixer. And they both have the exact same settings. I don't know. You heard the kettle drums? What kettle drums? Is that what those are? I don't know. It's the sound that came with that transition, from the person who made this whole theme that I use on my stream. Sorry, I have little cheesecakes that my wife brought home. You heard the music that transition plays, I'm pretty sure. Tell you what, we're going to do an experiment. We're going to do it one more time. Hey, Access, what's up, buddy? We're going to change the screen back and forth, and we'll see if it plays, just because I'm trying to troubleshoot. Because I literally haven't updated OBS, and I fixed it for the last stream, so. Did you guys hear that? The sound music that it plays with the transition clip? You did? Okay, good. All right, then that seems to be working. Now the question is, how come I couldn't hear the waiting room video? That's odd. Well, one less thing for me to troubleshoot. Works for me. All right. Sorry. Let's switch back. Okay. Cool. So that's good news. Axis says, "I love how CIG has answered two of my questions regarding Nyx. What are those questions? If you don't mind sharing." So I'm going to drop the link to this Loremakers community questions in chat if you guys want to follow along. One of them was about who the major factions are. Oh, okay. So you were the one that asked about, like, I forget what the original question is, something in the tune of what other organizations or criminal organizations or criminal groups, when they talked about the Moraine a while back, and the other was the extent of the people. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I am very excited to hear more about Nyx, and to if so. Obviously, today was roadmap day, and we're going to go on a little tangent, but it's lore related. And we haven't gotten the new progress tracker. And Jake is, we know that they not only reorganized all the teams over at CIG after getting Squadron 42 to feature complete, and now it's on its way to content complete and so on. But they've reorganized those teams, and then they are creating a roadmap, a roadmap to 1.0 with all the features and technologies that they want to bring to the game to create that 1.0 release. Yeah, I think Nyx is probably soon after Pyro. But so the way, and this is just speculation based off of the way things have been said by Jake. He's made numerous posts on Spectrum and such, but the new roadmap is the updates to the progress tracker, and the new roadmap, or the big updates to the roadmap, are in flux. What that they're waiting until they finish that planning for what is the road to 1.0, along with the reorganization of teams. So the sort of first month of planning that we always get every year, where they don't update the roadmap for the first month until they get all that planning done, and then they'll update the progress tracker and so on. Well, that's taking a lot longer this year, because not only are they reorganizing all the teams, and so the progress tracker is going to have a big shakeup. Like, obviously, when they've made new teams and moved things around with before, we've gotten changes on the progress tracker. A new team gets added, and so, like, this team's work will stop here, and then this team's new team that's made up this team, that team, their work will start here. We're going to see a bunch of that, all sorts of stuff, a big shakeup of the progress tracker, and that progress tracker and the work scheduled for it that gets put on that with those new, there'll be deliverables will be moved, and lots of new deliverables will be added. Things will be consolidated. There's going to be a bunch of new stuff, and these things are going to be assigned to the new teams, the current teams and the new teams, and then that will align with CIG's plans going forward on the way to 1.0. Now, we don't know if there's going to be changes on the progress tracker in terms of, like, how upstream and downstream works and how far out they schedule, blah, blah, blah. We don't know when 1.0 is, like, when they're targeting. We don't know if the way Jake has been speaking, it sounds to me like we're going to go back to the old style of release view, where they go out a year in advance, but maybe not. But I do think that we are going to get an idea of what the road looks like up to 1.0, not just the next quarter patch. That's what it sounds like to me when I read all these posts and replies and statements, but it's just a hunch based off of what I'm reading. But along that line is, I expect to see work for Nyx get scheduled, starting this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it hadn't already started or was due to start soon. But we shall see, because we know about the Moraine or Moraine um, as a faction within Nyx, a pretty powerful faction, and they'll mention it here when we get down into the Loremakers community questions. We know about the People's Alliance of Levski, and so it'll be interesting to see who the other players are in Nyx. Are we going to see, how many other new organizations are we going to see in there? What organizations that we already know about are going to be in Nyx? How is Nyx going to connect into the game? Because obviously it's connected to Pyro. It's not connected to Stanton, but it's connected to Castro, which I've long thought might be one of the next systems coming after Nyx. And then Nyx connects us to Odin. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this sort of spider web of organizations sort of lays down on the game map, the world, the universe map, and who's where and what other systems they're connected to. Because they have mentioned, I think it was in a previous Loremakers community questions when talking about different outlaw organizations, or maybe it was in a Galactopedia. I think it was in a Galactopedia update where they talked about different organizations. And there's multiple criminal organizations, as an example, that operate in various different systems that aren't connected. Like they're based out of here and then over here, but these systems aren't connected. They're a long ways away. And so it's kind of interesting how they've laid that out. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the Loremakers community questions. If you guys have any questions or are confused about what I'm reading about or have any other thoughts, please drop them in the chat. I'd love to hear what you have to say. This Loremakers community questions isn't very long, so we'll get through this. But this is a good time to explore other aspects of the lore, especially if they're related to these questions. Yeah, I'm sure that they patrol parts of the Nyx system, the People's Alliance of Levski. That they might have, because we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So, welcome to Loremakers Community Questions, a series focused on answering your lore quandaries and conundrums. We've done a deep dive through the lore Ask a Dev section. So, if you have a question, go to the Ask a Dev section and make a post there. No worries, dude. You're good. And selected 10 questions to answer about the Star Citizen universe. All questions were edited for context and clarity, but you can click on the topic to go directly to the original post and join the conversation. Also, the narrative team plans to do one installment on Loremakers Community Questions every quarter, with the next entry scheduled for Tuesday, June 18th. So please join the discussion and drop any other questions you might have about the universe in our Ask a Dev forum. So the first question is about MISC, the ship manufacturer, and Xi'an collaboration. Before we get started, I'm going to have another bite of cheesecake. So the question is, the more Xi'an ships come out, the less I understand what exactly is meant by MISC's cooperation with Xi'an. What technologies are we talking about? I don't see any connection in ship design or the technology that the Apoa and Gatak provide. Please tell me what you mean by MISC as one of the first corporations in the United Empire of Earth to sustain a tech trade partnership with the Xi'an. Answer. In 2910, MISC and the Xi'an Empire signed a first-of-its-kind technology-sharing agreement that saw ideas, technology, and even experts freely exchanged between the two sides. MISC's impact and contribution to Xi'an ships isn't well known within the UEE, as the ships Xi'an manufacturers have exported into the UEE lean heavily into the alien aesthetic and tech to distinguish them in the market. So let's focus on the Xi'an's impact on MISC. After signing the deal, MISC leveraged this influx of new ideas and tech into developing a smaller spacecraft that could appeal to the masses. This initiative resulted in the design for the Freelancer, which featured traditional human aesthetics subtly integrated with Xi'an advances like improved thrust draw conditioning. While the designs for the Reliant were done at the same time, it's believed that it was passed over because the verticality created by its movable flying wing clearly signaled its Xi'an inspiration and might alienate some humans still wary after the Xi'an human Cold War. The Reliant design remained mothballed for decades until being revived and brought to market in 2946. Oh, that's interesting. By then, MISC had found success with other ships that promoted their Xi'an influence and tech, and the company leveraged what they learned to upgrade the Reliant design with more efficient Xi'an thrusters and advanced Xi'an metal composites for the ship's wing armor. In the decades between the launch of the Freelancer and Reliant, MISC discovered that many of its ship teams struggled to integrate Xi'an tech into their designs. This began to change in 2940 when MISC assigned the MISC-M division of misfits and out-of-the-box designers to rework the Daedalus, MISC's non-commercial racing ship. The MISC-M team traveled to a facility in Ryla to work on the ship with veteran Xi'an ship designer To Ko Se Lail, leading to the creation of advanced thrusters that lapped ones available to competing racers. The reworked Daedalus earned itself a new name, Razor, and would go on to win the Murray Cup Classic race in 2945 before receiving a successful commercial release in 2947. MISC-M, Marai, M is Marai, continue to push their designs to further integrate Xi'an tech with the creation of the Fury, featuring 4 fully gimbaled main thrusters to provide the speed and evasiveness renowned in many Xi'an ships. The uniqueness of the Fury design inspired MISC CEO Irina Adjei, to spin off the MISC-M division into its own sub-brand named Mirai and retroactively rebrand the Razor as a Mirai ship. With the launch of the Mirai brand, the days of subtly integrating Xi'an tech into ships seems to be gone. It should be exciting to see how Mirai leverages this relationship going forward to create more interesting and unique ships that combine human and Xi'an tech and aesthetics. So a little bit of it is aesthetic, but the big part when they ask about the tech in terms of gameplay is the let's see. So integrated with Xi'an advances like improved thrust draw conditioning. I don't know what the draw conditioning part is, but basically they're just the MISC ships will have some sort of difference between other human ships in terms of their thrusters, whether their thrusters are more powerful for the same size. They're not going to give them like this huge astronomical edge, but they will say that, okay, these thrusters are a little bit more powerful. It makes these ships have a little bit better strafing or turning pitch yaw, whatever you want to call it, than other ships in the same class. So when they, like, if we're talking about master modes right now, and they use all these ship archetypes, the one way to think about it is the MISC ship within a certain archetype will probably have maybe a bit more maneuverability. And the thing is, they don't specify between maneuvering thrusters and like main thrusters. So this is them not putting the gameplay teams into a corner. And so the gameplay teams and the ship teams can say that, okay, all MISC ships for within their archetype have better maneuvering thrusters in that they are able to maybe accelerate more quickly in maneuvering, and so they can do all the different maneuvers faster. And that might be how they do it. Or they could say that all MISC ships within their different archetypes have better acceleration or a higher top speed. It's going to be up to the ship designers, up to the game designers, and whatever way they want to take it. The lore team is able to go back and say that, hey, we didn't paint them in a corner. We said that they had better Xi'an thrusters, and in terms of gameplay purposes, this is what that equals out to. But it leaves it open for the people making the ships and the people doing the gameplay design to make that decision. They just have the directive from the narrative team to say, okay, we want you to incorporate this, and whether you go this way, that way, or this way, it's up to you. But probably pick one way and stick with it is what I would imagine. I would assume, I'm hoping that it means more in terms of maneuverability, considering we've got the Mirai, but at the same time the Razor is fast. So don't know. We'll see. The other thing they talk about is, where was it? The Control F. Alloy? No, was it metal? There you go. Metal composites. There we go. And the company leveraged what they learned to upgrade the Reliant design with more efficient Xi'an thrusters. And so here we say more efficient Xi'an thrusters. So it might not be that the thrusters outperform those made by human manufacturers. They could just be more efficient. And so MISC ships from the later years could be just more fuel efficient for doing the same things. And advanced Xi'an metal composites for the ship's wing armor. So this is going to play into Maelstrom. So with Maelstrom, the ship designers are going back and they give certain properties to all the different, to the different materials. It's not the ship designers, it's the, everything, but it's starting with ships. But every material will have various properties. Like they talked, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch that bit from, it was the first talk at CitizenCon this last year. And they talk about the different properties that they are bringing into materials with Maelstrom. And so advanced Xi'an metal composites for the ship's wing armor might, we don't know what that means. It could be lighter, because if they're more efficient, maybe they're more efficient thrusters, and the ships, like the Reliant, are lighter than other ships in their class. And so not only they have more fuel efficient thrusters, but they're also lighter. And so they are more efficient that way in terms of fuel usage. They might be more resistant to certain types of impact. They might be stronger. They don't give us any hints what that means. It just tells us that the MISC ships with Xi'an influence are going to have advanced Xi'an metal composites built into them, and that will give the armor different properties. Maybe that also comes with an increased cost in terms of maintenance. We don't know. Something to think about. But this is the gameplay assigned to this lore. And again, the narrative team isn't painting anyone else into a corner. They're just saying that there's going to be they give direction to the teams, and then the teams decide what they want to do with it, and the lore team will work around it in order to incorporate it more accurately once the time comes. So once those teams decide where they want those ships to be tuned wise within their different archetypes for master modes, the narrative team can come back and say, okay, they're more efficient in terms of fuel usage or whatever, and these metals are more lightweight, or they're more durable but more costly. It'll be up to those other teams, and then the narrative team can incorporate that. So yeah, interesting stuff. This is why lore equals gameplay is a thing that I do, and why it's something that I enjoy, because even little things are like this. Understanding and knowing this stuff is going to make it can influence your decision in game to decide, okay, this is the play style that I like. I'm going to save up money for this ship versus that ship. If you want a ship that's more maneuverable, then maybe you're going to go for the Freelancer or the Reliant over a Cutlass. because that's the way you want to fly. And who knows how they'll go, where they'll go with the armor, but maybe that will impact your decision making on a ship that you decide to buy. So, something to keep in mind. Let's see. So, the next question is about the Office of Executive Services. So, think of here. I'm going to scroll back up because I think there's a Galactopedia article on them. And if not, we'll executive. Nope. Nope. Hold on. Let me. Sorry, Citizen Office of Executive Services. Here we go. Okay. And I know this has been mentioned before, and so I don't know why they don't have citations up on this in the... oh, here, let's get rid of these. So, the Office of Executive Services responsibilities, long hidden behind an innocuous name within the labyrinthine bowels of the Senate's budget, the OES is responsible for the collection, analysis, or exploitation of information and intelligence in support of law enforcement, imperial security, defense, and foreign policy objectives. Think this is like the UEE's version of the NSA. They do have field agents, but the way I understand the OES is it's a lot more about the NSA that which is in terms of data gathering, data analysis, intelligence counter, more digitized, versus the field operatives of the CIA or even the field people, field agents of the FBI. But it's sort of it's not a direct analog to any one of those things, but incorporates some of those. This can take on many forms, from communication intercepts to asset gathering to counterintelligence to black ops in alien civilizations, as OES utilizes operatives throughout the Empire on both domestic and foreign missions. So it's like part NSA, part FBI, part CIA, and more clandestine than the advocacy, which is more the advocacy is very much more law enforcement focused. Field agents for OES actively recruit assets within and without the UEE to keep the Senate apprised of potential crises and growing threats to imperial security. Known within OES as associates, they are charged with digging up information or turning assets for OES analysts to consume. Awareness. The existence of OES is still heavily guarded. The Imperator, the military, and the advocacy are all aware that the Senate has a clandestine agency at their disposal, but having to sift through wild conjecture and unreliable sources, they can't isolate exactly where it is or even who's in charge. Also, associates embedded within those organizations are very good at disrupting any potential leads. That isn't to say that the OES is an open book to all the Senate. Senators have to be in office for several terms before they are brought into the fold about the agency's existence. So, very super secret squirrel stuff. So, OES. I have a bunch of questions regarding this office. How much does the OES involve themselves in the affairs of other species? Does the OES ever work with or against other species, or are they just involved internally in UEE domestic affairs? Do the OES and military work together? I ask because in the real world, there are often rivalries and the public pays a price. The public pays the price. Is the OAS or military worried about the existence of the Hadesians? The Hadesians are extinct, but okay. Knowing the power that the Hadesians possess, but having no idea where they are and if they will resurface, does the OAS ever get involved in slavery cases, or is this just left up to the police? So, answer. The extent of OES's actions still aren't entirely known, as they seem to operate both inside the UAE and outside. Their existence was only recently discovered during the Cenk Gallen incident, where a human was captured in geospace on charges of espionage. Now that they've been pulled out of the shadows and are given oversight, I think they're still trying to figure out how they move forward. Back when they were operating with impunity, I would suspect the OAS probably did enlist military assistance in their operations, but most likely did so under the guise of a conventional UE intelligence service or other facet of bureaucracy, rather than identifying themselves as OES. Yeah, high speed, low accountability, and very much the OES is probably a throwback to the time of the Measures. And still exists as a tool that the Senate uses. And now there's some oversight, and they're less, they are aligning to the new reality, or realigning to manage with their new reality. You probably had it. Pardon me. Cheesecake, where there are holdovers from the Measures as well as the senators that knew about them. They survived the purge, and they kept on operating. They do things a little bit differently, but probably are. I would imagine they probably don't have the same moral compass that the new EE tries to say that they do. The new UEE is trying to be the gentler, softer UEE. Doesn't always work out that way, but I doubt that the OES has turned over the same leaf. It's hard to drain the space swamp. Exactly. Hey, Victor07, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. At the same time, it's just like our own spy agencies. Like, we only hear about their failures, and I'm sure they probably do a lot of things that are very important for the safety and security of the people of the UAE. But I also imagine that a lot of what a goodly amount is probably done in a way that it would be unsavory to the public. Getting things done because they need to be done, and doing what needs to be done, for lack of a better way of putting it. Now, the narrative team acknowledges their existence. You better believe that if you get like really good rep with the military, or maybe you can even get good rep within, like, working for the Senate, or the UE government, or the advocacy, that you might attract the attention of the OES. And this would be like end game spy stuff, end game intelligence stuff, sneaking around the galaxy, doing super spy stuff, as an asset. You wouldn't be an agent or an associate of the OES, but you would be an asset that they, that they would say they turned. You probably have to, I could see them doing it where you have to achieve a very specific alignment of reputation with certain organizations, and have to have completed very specific missions to then trigger this thing where you get this untraceable message via Spectrum, on your mobiGlas. And you have to jump through all these hoops to make contact for them to give you this job. And, they'll promise you all sorts of different stuff. going to S4 and filling out tons of forms. But it could be something really interesting in terms of gameplay. If you can imagine what sort of spy mission might take you into Xi'an space, um, or um, a criminal organization, or some sort of anti-UEE organization or something like that. There's a lot of opportunity um, for that sort of gameplay to be at the very end of a sort of chain of events involving your reputation. Let's see. Back when they were operating with impunity, I would suspect the OAS probably did enlist military assistance in their operations, but most likely did so under the guise of a conventional UE intelligence service or other field or other facet of bureaucracy, rather than identifying themselves as OES. As far as the Hadesians, I'm sure they're probably pretty interested to learn more about the ancient culture. As for the slavery cases, they might if it serves their interest. Very nebulous. Is there any more lore on Mirai? So we just talked about Misk, but I noticed that the Galactopedia currently doesn't have an entry on Mirai. Is there any lore about the spacecraft manufacturer that can be shared? Good news. February's Galactopedia update included an article on Mirai. It covers the work of a specialized team within Misk inspired the company to spin. It covers how the work of a specialized team within Misk inspired the company to spin off their ships into its own subsidiary. A longer portfolio on the history and evolution of this division and the creation of Mirai was also written and released in Jump Point 11.03. Currently, the article is available to subscribers, but it is scheduled to be released on the RSI site for all to read on Tuesday, April 23rd. So, coming soon. Death of a Spaceman and its impact on the universe. And so this is going to tie in with some of the other answers that they have given regarding regeneration, because people have taken regeneration to mean that Death of a Spaceman is not dead, and it is the furthest thing from the truth. All regeneration is allowing for catastrophic death within Death of a Spaceman. They were talking about this in the context of Death of a Spaceman in 2019 and 2020, years before regeneration was concepted. They were talking about having this sort of system to allow for, if you take a size 9 torpedo to the face or get yeeted into a sun or something like that. It still is and has always been the plan where if you don't catastrophically die, that you essentially go unconscious, and your insurance, essentially it creates a beacon, and a NPC or a player would come and rescue you and take you to the nearest appropriate facility. And basically you would respawn, but you wouldn't be dead. You would just wake up in a hospital bed, having gone through the appropriate operations, and congratulations, now you've got a bill, blah, 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 insurance covered this much, whatever. But it wouldn't, it's respawn without death. That's been the plan all along for anything not catastrophic death. And they created regeneration in order to have a lore explanation for catastrophic death, for things that couldn't be explained away, or just hand waved away with science fiction. And these are things where I'm paraphrasing, but they're basically direct quotes from CR, from Richard Tyrer. This is not changed. Yeah, I used to be an adventurer too, but then I took a size 9 to the knee. Yeah. So regeneration hasn't changed any of that. And people think that, I'm just going to be able to backspace and regenerate. No, regeneration is meant to be prohibitively expensive. If you backspace, you're not going to be able to. Yeah, you could commit suicide and do that, or if you're just injured, you call for you call for medical support. And they've talked about this, where just like if a bounty hunter captures you and they put you in their bounty hunter pod, okay, then you just press the button on your screen and you wake up in jail. And you don't have to sit there in the pod the entire time. You could if you wanted to, especially if you think people are going to come to your rescue, but you don't have to. Same thing for medical. Somebody drags your your limp but still alive body into the med bed, and then you press the button, or you just press the button and you go unconscious, and you wake up in the hospital. But you having done that, you are going to have consequences of doing that. If you don't want to wait for somebody to come and heal you, okay, well, congratulations. This is what the word convalescence means. You're going to have debuffs from waking up in the hospital bed and taking the shortcut. Congratulations. You just had a bunch of very, significant procedures done to your body, and you're going to have a convalescence period where you're going to have these debuffs. You can't run as fast. You don't have as much stamina. Maybe you've got a limp, your vision's narrowed, what have you. All these sorts of things before you can get back in the action. And there'll be opportunities, you can pay this money to do this or that to speed up the process. All these different options for it. But regeneration has not changed anything. It's just given lore to what they were already planning. So, death of a spaceman and its impact on the universe. Question: is it common in the SC universe for people to swap their physical sex? What I've understood about the way Death of a Spaceman and Regen are supposed to work suggests that this would be pretty trivial to do. Is it common? Or does that maybe cause a problem when it comes to legal issues? How is identity legally established? If you have a tailored appearance with DNA that's not identical to your own, how is it established that when you regen, that you're legally the same person? Or another way of putting it might be, how closely linked is biology to identity? Answer: recent advances in medical science in the 30th century have made altering one's complete physical appearance a lot more commonplace. For example, Bioticore's cutting-edge Calliope system. This is the character customizer we're getting. That's why it says Calliope up in the top left corner. You are using the Calliope system to create your character. And you will be able to use the Calliope system to change your character. Allows people to safely and quickly undergo massive structural bone and tissue changes that would have previously taken a team of surgeons multiple operations to perform. Regardless of how many changes someone undergoes, there would still be inherent markers that would remain consistent by which deep scans would be able to identify someone in order to maintain a consistent and verifiable ID record. So, Calliope does not change your DNA. Regeneration doesn't change your DNA. If you create a new character because you've regen too many times, that's a new person with new DNA. But you can use the Calliope system to change your body's physical structure. But you're not changing your DNA. That's not how it works. My theory and the way that the article on Bioticore reads and the lore around Bioticore is that the technology that they developed that works with regeneration is what also allows them to basically replace an organ. And they can grow a new organ and place it in you, and your body doesn't reject it. And so it's a much easier operation than doing this big old surgical operation and doing a transplant. Or it's a much easier operation than if you have a mechanical heart or a biomechanical liver or something like that put in your body. Now, using the Bioticore, essentially regen serum to grow a new liver if yours becomes damaged because it got shot, might be way more expensive, but doing so might be quicker. So it'll be up to the player to choose which option they want to go with. The much more expensive option that gets you back into shape and good as new with little recovery time, or if you're and this is one way that they differentiate the hospitals. I would be willing to bet you don't have access to this at Levski. I'd be willing to bet you don't have access to this at Ruin Station. The people don't understand that these are not the same thing as a regen capable bed or a imprint capable scanner. There are multiple. A scanner is commonplace. A regen bed is not. They are separate things. Go back and read the regen article. They talk about it. An imprint capable scanner is commonplace. That is what those are. It's like having a CAT scan. They're in every hospital, little or small, across the United States. They're everywhere. But a level 1 trauma suite is not everywhere, and it's not in every hospital. That's what regeneration and this Calliope capable system, in terms of advanced healing, would be equivalent to. So please note that this is different from regeneration, like I just talked about, the process by which a new body is created from an Ibrahim sphere imprint. These cannot be manipulated and are accurate to your last imprint scan. So essentially your last save. Basically, when you create an imprint scan, you are saving your character. You're updating your character. But if you don't do a save every now and then, that save will not degenerate, right? Is that the right word? It will lose its viability, and so you need to maintain it. For example, if someone were to make an imprint, make alterations via the Calliope system, then experience a fatal accident, their regenerated body would look like it did before they made the alteration. So that's why it's important. So if you go to make all these alterations, this is going to cost money. Congratulations. You're having, a procedure. It's more commonplace, and it doesn't take a team of surgeons, but it's the equivalent of having, plastic surgery, essentially, making all these alterations, and it's going to cost you money to do it. And so if you don't do a new imprint to save those changes, and if you die and you have to regenerate, those changes are lost. That money is lost. So this is another incentive. It behooves you to make imprints on a regular basis to save your character, to update your character. Because if you don't have an updated imprint, that's the other thing, is if you don't have an updated imprint, the quality, you will have more essentially debuffs when you regenerate. You can have these sort of debuffs. So that's the risk of going way out in the black and not doing an imprint and getting a bunch of injuries and all that. You want to have a good quality, recent, high functioning imprint. Otherwise, they're going to have negative consequences when you regen. Their regenerated body would look like they did before they made the alterations, barring, of course, any physical damage imparted by traumatic echoes in the imprint as a result of the death. So this is the other big incentive, is these traumatic echoes. So if you die with multiple severe injuries, or you take multiple severe injuries in the course of your death, those are imprinted on you, and you regenerate with that physical damage. You'll have a limp. You'll have decreased stamina because your lungs are damaged, or your heart isn't as efficient. You might experience, have vision changes because you have a head injury, all those sorts of things. So not only is the process of regeneration prohibitively expensive, but then if you want these things to be healed, you then have to pay for that afterwards. And so you have debuffs from not only the physical damage, but also the process of regeneration. But then you'll also have to go through the a different healing process in order to get these things fixed. So it's not cheap. They don't want you to just backspace and kill yourself. They want you to use the medical system. This is going to be expensive. This is going to encourage you to have insurance. It's going to encourage you to use the healthcare system within Star Citizen. And to go back and get your character healed. And, if you've got tier 2 injuries, don't press on, give up on the mission, at least for now, and go back and find a hospital and get healed up, because you don't want to have those tier 2, tier 1 injuries on your body when you regenerate, because those are going to be a big problem for you. Pyro system reduced in size. So this is an interesting one. Did you shrink Pyro? Some old information said Pyro is about 13 AU, nearly 3 times bigger than Stanton. Yet in the Star Engine trailer, it says 9.83 AU, which is only about 2 times the size of Stanton. Answer: yes. The Pyro system is smaller than it used to be. This decision was made after discussions with other teams to allow shorter travel between distant locations. Nothing has been removed from Pyro. Everything is just a bit closer. So Pyro is only our second system. They didn't want to, cause too much of a shock to the player base by introducing a substantially larger system. Now, really, they only dropped it by 3 AU. It's not that much smaller. It's just a little bit smaller. But in order to give allow players to ease into what Star Citizen is and what larger systems are going to mean and how this sort of all plays together with the limited infrastructure, they made the system a little bit smaller. Now, I did a podcast segment on, let's see if I can find it, on the Pathfinders podcast about the changes to the star map. So let's see. Playlists. Was it under? Would have been under scanner anomalies, I believe. No. Where is it? Where did it go? I did a segment. Oh, I think it's one of the ones that we re-uploaded and I don't have a specific subdivided scanner anomaly for it. Okay, anyway. Let's see, where was I? So there have been a lot of changes to the star map over the years since it was released, but they've all been done in stealth. They are not published. They're not talked about. But a couple of people have noticed, and someone was even tracking them for a couple of years, but they went dark. But I took notice of it a few years ago, and so a lot of systems have had their sizes changed. Probably about 10 have had a pretty decent amount of change in size going up, and about 10 have had pretty decent size and change in size going down. There's also been a bunch of changes in terms of planets moving, the sizes of planets changing, the types of stars changing. They've moved jump points. They've changed the size of jump points. They've even added jump points. So it's something that's been done in the background. It's aligning with a greater overall design for the game. And so I think that this is mostly just they don't want the second system to be that much bigger. Now, granted, this is still small. The biggest systems in Star Citizen are hundreds of AU. Hundreds. Here, I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet. I have the spreadsheet on my drive. And I'll share it in the chat. My drive, I want... Actually, no, it's under Sheets. Here we go. Share and link. Yeah, gonna need a lot of EVA fuel. So there's the link to the spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet just shows you the system sizes, and this was as of like a year and a half ago, all taken from the star map. But when I did this, a lot of these systems on the SC Tools wiki had different sizes, and I was able to go back and find out that there had been changes, and some systems had gotten smaller, some had gotten bigger, and it all been done over time and done in stealth. So, like for example, Nix. We were talking about Nix earlier. Nix used to be 39 AU. And so when the star map first came out, and SC Tools wiki, this is at the time, a year and a half ago, hadn't updated their information from when the star map first came out. But then when I went and checked it, it was down to 11 AU. And I found out that it had changed twice. It went from 39 to 17 to 11. So 11 AU is only a little bit bigger than Pyro is now, but it is still bigger. But it's also a system that's not going to have a lot of infrastructure because it's in much the same state as Pyro. But that was the one that was the largest change difference in terms of getting smaller. It dropped to 28 AU. But then like Kayukia and Geonspace went from 31 to 13. Centauri in the UAE went from 21 to 10. Nemo, which is also UAE, went from 12 to 2. And there's a whole bunch of other ones that dropped like 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. A lot of them stayed the same, but then down at the bottom, the Thus Ung or Pala system in Geonspace grew from 9 AU to 40. Tyrannus, which is an unclaimed system, I think it's a developing, I don't remember, went from 7 to 18. Magnus went from 3 to 14. Oberon went from 10 to 18. Kiel went from 22 to 28. Kiel is where the actual home of IAE is, on Severus, which is the name of the planet. Kaipua or Kaifa in Geonspace went from 6 to 12. So there's been a lot of changes. So something to keep in mind. Maybe my new magic backpack will auto recharge my EVA. EVA is going to require fuel, so I don't think it's going to recharge anything. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they make suits work. But I would be willing to bet we're going to get an EVA backpack with much more fuel, but obviously you won't have as much carrying capacity. So there's going to be a lot of player agency. But so they will continue to change system sizes, but I don't think that we're going to get, people have taken this as that they're going to shrink Star Citizen in general. And I don't think that's the case at all, because they've been making these changes for years, and some have been big, some have been small, but some systems have gotten bigger, some have gotten smaller, and a lot have stayed the same. There are going to be big star systems in Star Citizen. It is, but there aren't going to be a lot of them. If you go to that spreadsheet and you look at it, and I've done it in my head, but basically like a third of the star systems in the Star Citizen universe are 10 AU or below, like 30 something systems. And then the next third is basically from like 10 AU to like 30 AU. And so it gets the number in each bracket gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And basically I've grouped them into kind of like we have 5 hangar sizes, and ship sizes: extra small, small, medium, large, capital. I think we're gonna have the same. I've basically had the same thing in terms of system sizes, whereas Stanton and anything basically sub 10 is extra small, and everything 10 to 30 is small. Everything 30 to 50 is medium. Everything 50 to 100 is large, and everything over 100 is extra large. but each grouping is progressively smaller as it gets, the systems get larger. And so, it's fine to have a handful of really large systems because that's gameplay for certain people, especially when becomes is related to exploration or hauling and logistics. The Killian system is absolutely massive, massive. But you better believe that there's going to be a lot of cargo getting moved through there because there's a whole bunch of building going on there because that's where the Navy's main base is. They've got big shipyards. The Marines' main base is on the planet of Corin, way out in the outer system. It's this frozen hoth of a planet. But this is where lore equals gameplay comes into play. Knowing these system sizes.
So
and knowing,
say we all.
Oh boy. So say we all. Oh, the sound alert worked and it scared the bejesus out of me. Hey, Aether Drift, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for playing the sound alert and giving me a heart attack. M Walker 300 says, "Was there any changes to the Odin system?" Let's look real quick. Here, I apologize. I'm going to I'll put the spreadsheet on the screen. So let's see. We'll change this to I'm brain farting. There we go. Sort. So Odin. Odin did not change in size as of when I did this. And that was a year and a half ago. So Aether Drift, we're just going through the Loremakers community questions. We're about halfway through. We've talked about Death of a Spaceman and regeneration, Mirai and Misk and their cooperation with the Xi'an, the Office of the Executive Services, which is kind of like a very super secret squirrel version of, kind of mix between the CIA and the NSA almost. If you were talking about the U.S. intelligence services. And now we're talking about the change in size of Pyro. And so I was talking about the change in system sizes. So actually here, we're going to open up the star map just because I'm curious and I want to check. Let's open up the star map real quick and we'll look at Odin. See if anything's changed since then. But I don't think they even updated. They did. So if you go over to Pyro, they did update Pyro in terms of adding planet names and changing the lore for the planets and all that. They did move. Nazarus and I talked about this. I was able to get a screenshot before and after, but they did move the jump points. But you can see how the jump points are more in the outer system. But if we go back out and you right click on Pyro, it still says 13 AU. But if we use the routing tool and we'll do the route from let's go Crusader in Stanton to Cascom in Castra, and we will say medium ship calculate, and we want the this route, and let's go. Okay, so this is interesting because the system size itself on this map is 13 AU. But this says it's almost 20 AU from the Stanton Pyro jump point to the Castra Pyro jump point. So does that mean that jump points can be beyond the system's boundary? And the system can actually be greater than that size? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see until we get and a more accurate star map, and are able to see how things actually are in the full version of Pyro. Nyx is actually a very interesting system. And they have given updates to the lore. I think they're going to add to the lore. I don't think they're going to change it. So I don't think they're going to get rid of what we have already. They're just going to add to it. But Nyx was added to the Galactopedia last year, I think it was. And so the planets do have some interesting lore, but there's a lot for them to add to the system, and it is a very interesting system with the 2 asteroid belts and the sort of nebula that courses through the system, and abandoned asteroid facilities. They've talked about the moraine, which we'll take a look at here in a second. But so that was Pyro, which they didn't update the system size on the star map, but they did update the actual page. Like if you click on it and look in it. But then here's Odin. Odin's still 21 AU, hasn't changed. But Magnus, you can see right there, 14 AU. And let's see if Magnus System Star Citizen, go to the wiki. Okay, so it has been updated on the wiki now. Because I did talk to people who are like sort of responsible for the SC Tools wiki at the time. Oh, thanks for you're on a 10 stream streak. Oh man, thank you so much for the support, Aether Drift. I really appreciate it. Glad to have you. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Yeah, this is fun for me. This is what I enjoy doing. This is what I do on my downtime at work, or when my kid's taking a nap and I've gotten my chores done. But yeah, so it looks like the SC Tools wiki people have probably gotten caught up with the star map since I did this, but they did have that they like, if I can find the segment on the podcast from way back when, it was a thing. I promise. I'm not crazy. I mean, I am crazy, but not in this regard. So let's move on. People's Alliance area of influence. Question: does the People's Alliance control the entirety of Nyx, or are they merely one of the major factions in the system? Answer: the People's Alliance is Nyx's major faction for sure. And so I don't really know if there's really an analog in Pyro, because we haven't really gotten a good idea of who would be the most numerous or faction in Pyro, or who controls the most territory. We don't really know that yet, especially because the different pirate organizations are vying for control and dominance. And so I think it's more of a multi-way struggle, whereas the People's Alliance of Levski is the most prominent and probably most numerous faction in Nyx. So they say is Nyx's major faction for sure, but they mainly control the area around Delamar. This is mainly due to their available security resources, as it would be an expensive proposition to patrol the full system. While there are outposts and stations aligned with the People's Alliance peppered throughout Nyx, so this is really interesting, because before we saw Pyro, we had no idea how many stations were going to be in Pyro. We just knew that there was going to be limited infrastructure, and there is. The system is twice the size of Stanton, has the same number of stations, but more than half of them are derelict. So it is twice the size as Pyro, but with half the number of operating stations, no major landing zones, and only limited resources at those stations and at the outposts throughout the system. So Pyro, it has probably, just stupid math, like an eighth of the infrastructure that Stanton does at best. And that's just the places you can go for service, not talking about the limitation of those services that are there. So keep that in mind. Levski or Nyx will probably be much the same way. There will be abandoned stations that are controlled by the People's Alliance of Levski. that there will be some derelict stations again. They'll reuse, they'll do the same thing that they did for Pyro with their procedural tools, and some will be abandoned and taken over by the People's Alliance or other factions. Some will be completely abandoned and derelict. But then they've also talked about the asteroid facilities and such, and there will be. I don't think we're going to have outposts on the planets like we have in Pyro, because I don't think we're going to have a habitable planet. But I think that we're probably going to have like sealed arcologies and sealed abandoned UGFs that some will be abandoned by the former corporations and taken over by the People's Alliance or whoever, and others will just be derelict. But let's see. We're going to open up the Galactopedia article. So they did go over the Nyx system and everything in it in the Galactopedia. So if you're looking for lore on Nyx and the most updated lore on Nyx, start here. Start at this article. Going to drop it in chat. Because this is, the most up-to-date stuff as of only a year or so ago. And there are changes and additions and updates from the original Galactic Guide that came out years ago. The overall theme has not changed, but there have been additions to it to give it a little bit more flavor and to give the gameplay and designers more to work with in terms of building out the system. But this is situated at the border of an unusually dense and dark stellar cloud. So due to the cloud's interference with navigational equipment, travel through the system is difficult and hazardous. They're saying right here. The system's main settlement, Levski, located on a moon-sized asteroid in the Glacium Ring, is considered a haven for humans who wish to live beyond the reach of the UEE. But then they talk about Nyx 1, which was mined extensively. There's abandoned mining facilities there on the planet. UGFs. I guarantee it. Sometimes used as temporary shelter by visitors. Nyx 2, smog planet, can't be terraformed. You could probably land on the planet with some difficulty, but they have said that they are not going to change. There are going to be planets that don't really give you a reason to go there, but they still have to have them because realism. But there's going to be so many planets in Star Citizen that not all of them have to be really useful. And a lot of them, some of them will be super dangerous to land on, and you won't really have a reason to go there except for maybe science. Glacium Ring, Delamar, Nyx 3, which is Gas Giant, the Keegar Ring. But yeah, there's been mining out there, criminal strongholds. So abandoned, asteroid facilities are gonna be a thing. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what if they give Levski an orbit, or Delamar. Sorry, if Delamar has an orbit, if it ends up orbiting, because that was the problem is it didn't orbit, it didn't spin like the other planets. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. But yeah, so Nyx is a really interesting system. It has been updated. It had some additions, and I've covered it in when I've covered the Galactopedia update where they talked about it. But it's a really interesting system, and so I suggest you go and you read those articles and think about them from a system design, a star system design point of view, as well as what sort of gameplay might be there, what they might be hinting at. So while there are outposts and stations aligned with the People's Alliance peppered throughout Nyx, the further out you go, the more likely you are to run into one of several outlaw groups vying for territory in the system. We touched on one of these outlaw groups back in the Q3 2022 Loremakers Guide, or Loremakers Community Questions, the Moraine, who are an organization of thieves and smugglers based out of the Glacium Ring. The Glacium Ring is the asteroid ring that Delamar is in, but it's big. So it'll be really interesting to see who these other outlaw groups are. Are we going to see entirely new ones? Are we going to see a mix of new and ones that are already established elsewhere? Are they going to be ones that are they all going to be ones that we know? What are they going to be like? It'll be, we won't know. And I'm really looking forward we don't know now. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about them. But if you want to read about the Moraine, I'm going to put the link in here. They are a pretty interesting group of folks. I highly recommend you check them out. They are very different than the pirates and other unlawful groups that we have thus far. So here is another good one. Before we continue, and have another bite of cheesecake. Actually, give me 1 minute. I'm going to open up the window because my computer is making it a little warm in here. I'll be right back. Alrighty. Hope that should get it cooled down in here pretty quickly. Just checking on my kid. I've got his baby monitor in here. Okay, so why does Crusader specialize in weapons of mass destruction? Question. Crusader was founded by August Dunlow, a humanitarian visionary who was the victim of state-sponsored terrorism. And the company markets itself as the good guy manufacturer. I don't know if I'd say that, but so why is it the only manufacturer of indiscriminate bombers? Why is it indiscriminate? Indiscriminate bombing is done by people, not the ship. Not even Aegis has a gravity bomber. They just build torpedo platforms. It's super weird. And I don't know if that's accurate because I would be willing to bet we get the ability to carry gravity bombs in the Retaliator or even in the Eclipse. It's just not done yet. You would think that Dunlow would be Dunlow's dead. You would think that Dunlow would be a conscientious objector, even if contracted by the military. They would just build logistics and support ships, but bombers are the tip of the spear when it comes to collateral damage. Sorry, you can hear people driving in the background. Has the current board moved away from the ethics and vision of Dunlow to focus more on the bottom line? Is this a branding mistake? When the C2 is being designed with someone like, it would be cool if it had bombs, and we got the A2 and now just have to live with the dissonance of this choice? Answered. Let's see. The ship just don't care and drop bombs at random. It's on its own effing program. Yeah. Gladiator is supposed to be able to carry bombs as well. Yeah. I fully expect that when we get more in terms of bombing, that we'll be able to put bombs on all wing mounts, and probably even some of the internals. You just have like specific size bombs that can fit in there. I don't think that they're going to make you say, oh, this is only a torpedo bomber. It's like we do that with ordnance now. If you can put a missile on there, you can put a bomb on there. Yeah. So taking a step back, it is worth noting that there is a bit of separation between the ships available to players and those that exist in lore. In general, it is safe to assume that there might be other bombers being made, but the lore of the game is more focused on what the current development schedule is planning for players to actually experience. This is why we haven't made a comprehensive list of all vehicles manufactured currently or historically, as we require more flexibility for keeping aligned with the ship team. They don't paint the other teams into a corner. They work together. It's collaboration. The lore team, has influence, has say. They sort of, give some sort of boundaries and a little bit of like lay a little bit of groundwork in order for these other teams to work with, but then they don't like just come back and say, no, you can't do this. It isn't black and white like that. As for Crusader Industries, they have been dedicated towards helping the people of the Empire. Under Dunlow, they've made ships for the military since the company's earliest days when the army purchased their vehicle transports. Not long after, in 1821, so Dunlow dead, the Hercules Starlifter was conceived as a military vehicle from the struts up. Yeah, the M2 came first. It was the M2 first, the C2 and the A2 came after. When Kelly Kaplan became CEO in 2863, she began an effort to expand the corporation towards a more military focus, because money. Not only in an effort to combat the growing Vandal threat, but also to help defend their fledgling planetary interests. This led to, and so here's the other thing, is military doesn't mean that they have a military contract. It's just a military-focused ship. Now, some of these ships are used by the UE military, and some of them aren't. They don't have to be, just because it's a military ship, doesn't mean it has to be used by the military. I have military rifles in my gun case right there, but they're not used by the military. They are military-focused weapons. Yeah, they have a military purpose, but they weren't manufactured under contract with the military, because I didn't buy them through the army. Let's see. This led to the development of the Mercury in 2892 and eventually the Ares in 2949. So rather than the A2 Spirit being an abandonment of their core principles, it represents a gradual evolution on how the company sees its place in a changing empire. Yeah. The company has changed and shifted over the past 150 flipping years. Crusaders trying to stay relevant. They're trying to make money, and a big way to make money with, making vehicles is military contracts, especially when it comes to initial investment. That's what Anvil does. Anvil will make a ship for the military. They'll win a contract. They'll make it exclusively for the military for, decades. And then they'll make a civilian version and get the military to approve selling the civilian variant, the downgraded civilian variant. And they'll make a mint on it, and the military, basically paid their costs for essentially the R&D and building up the production to make it, and then make it on the civilian side, is pure profit after their overhead. Yeah, you did not shell out the extra money for the Fabrique Nationale Hearst. No, I did not. Yeah. So, let's see. Next question. What was supposed to open at Stratus Mall in 2952? Every time I visit Stratus, the shopping mall at Orison, I wonder about the storefront with the sign that says opening 2952. With 2954 upon us, I am curious what this storefront was supposed to be and why it hasn't opened. Consider the still vacant Stratus storefront another casualty of the constant Ninetales attacks on Orison's platforms. Though Crusader never officially announced the tenant meant to move into that space in late 2950, gourmands, I don't know what that word means, across the empire were abuzz about the news that that's people who like food, that Chef Cuddy Crawford had signed a deal with Stratus to open a restaurant on Orison. Crawford rose to fame with Gastronomical, the first restaurant on an 890 jump to win a silver leaf. Yet Crawford acknowledged the difficulties of running a restaurant aboard a ship, and was looking for opportunities to open a brick-and-mortar location. Occupying that second-floor space on the Stratus complex on Orison seemed like an ideal fit for the chef and the high-class clientele that wined and dined on the 890 jump. Yet the uptick in Ninetales attacks on Orison's platforms concerned Chef Crawford, and he officially backed out of the deal when his ship came under attack en route to Orison. Ooh, there's a good little tidbit. Chef Crawford and Stratus have been entangled in litigation ever since. Oh dear. Stratus claimed that they are owed rent and penalties for the early termination of the deal, while Chef Crawford argued that Orison's lax security breached a provision in the contract that specified a safe and secure working environment would be provided to the restaurant staff and guests. Ouch. Until this dispute is resolved, Stratus officials say the storefront will remain in its current state. Okay. NPC voice acting diversity in the PU. Question. Do you have plans to expand the future NPC voices in the PU with more diverse accents than British and American? Yes, we're definitely looking to expand the diversification in the PU. More cheesecake. Illyra Awards. Here's a bunch of questions about the Illyra Awards, which recognizes achievement in music. We haven't really delved too much into the actual history or structure of the Illyras. It was just a name that sounded good as an award. Oh, okay, this is the answer. But let's craft some lore now. To answer some of your questions one by one. Is it at all possible for a backer to win an Illyra Award? Not currently, but we certainly support the musical endeavors of our community. That would be really cool. If somebody could make like a bespoke score for Star Citizen, especially with like some lore tied to it, like this is their interpretation of what this style of music is. K-pop is from Korea. Well, there's actually S-pop in Saisei. And maybe somebody makes some S-pop music and they like it so much they add it to the game and they, make them an artist in the lore and give them an Illyra award. That would be really cool. A really great way to be, memorialized in the game. What categories are there? I would assume that this would be the standard array of categories that you'd find in modern awards. Best album genre, best song genre, etc. I'm sure they'd have various versions of the awards based on the genre of music. There would probably be categories for Xion or alien music to help bring attention to human listeners. How long have the awards been going for? We could say maybe 100 years or so, say 2803. Yeah, they're just winging it at this point. Who won the last award for Best Performer or equivalent? Have not determined this yet. It's interesting that they're answering these questions right now without making more lore for it. What is popular across the across the UEE currently? With all the various planets and systems, I don't know if you could truly encapsulate a consistent trend across the entire UEE. That would be like trying to say what music is popular across the world right now, because music in India, is not necessarily popular in the U.S. and vice versa. The Europe has lots of their own artists. It isn't just American music everywhere. If you've been to the Middle East and you've watched their version of MTV, it's a lot of Middle Eastern artists. It isn't just American music dominating the world. That's not how it works. So the same thing would apply, but on a galactic scale. It's a Tay easy game. We've name dropped a handful of bands and musicians: Elroy Cass, Starburst Collective, etc. Though, what is the most common way for people to listen to music in 2953? Do physical formats still exist, and does that mean I have to buy the White Album again? As a big fan of vinyl myself, I would support this, but I feel like they've probably phased out physical media since the recording process would probably be exclusively digital and distributed in a lossless way. Where and when are the awards hosted? As called out in the Galactopedia article, they're held in Prime on Terra. Prime being the capital city of the planet of Terra in the Terra system. But there are multiple landing zones on Terra. If you weren't aware, People, a lot of people don't realize that the planet of Terra is a super Earth. It has at least 3 known landing zones already, with multiple other cities mentioned in the lore. And Terra, the planet, is not the only inhabited planet in the Terra system. I think it's Gem is the other major planet that is inhabited in the Terra system, and I think there's more than that. But if you haven't checked out the lore for Terra, I encourage you to go check it out. There's a lot more than people realize. Who was the most recent host? Ooh, and did he get punched in the face for talking crap about somebody's wife? I would probably say Essen Lendari from Something Every Tuesday would be a good host. Yeah, time for Managed Democracy. Yep. Have there ever been any Jay-Z, Taylor Swift moments in memorable history? What moment was this? Oh dear. But sure, I would imagine there would be some memorable moments at the awards. There was Gal Dugan's last performance before she disappeared. That would certainly be one. Okay, so that is it for the Loremakers community questions. We're going to switch screens back to here. Okay. It has been a very long day for me. I was in dad mode all day because I have very limited childcare until our nanny starts in a few weeks, and it's been that way for a couple months now. So I was very busy with Junior today and working on the honey-do list at home. So I'm going to call it a night here. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming and hanging out this evening and being a part of Lore Equals Gameplay. I hope you found this interesting. I hope this encourages you to go and do some more lore reading on your own, or to check out previous episodes of Lore Equals Gameplay on my YouTube. If you haven't checked them out, please do. Leave a comment if you have any questions or other thoughts. I'd love to hear it. Give the videos a like. But by all means, check out the lore. And if you ever have any questions, I'd love to talk about it in my Discord, so please let me know. I'm going to be streaming again tomorrow night, but tomorrow night we're going to be doing episode 3 of Give Them Hope, where I'm going to be continuing the world building process for the game that I'm concepting and hoping to develop, whether I get someone else to develop it for me with my input and assistance, or I learn to develop it myself. I've started taking a series of game development classes from gamedev.tv, I think it is what it's called. And so I'm starting to learn how to use the Unity engine and the Unity developer. But yeah, so I've been working on the timeline for Give Them Hope. And so I think I have like maybe 2 more pages that I'm going to try and get done tomorrow while Junior naps, to get us caught up. And basically the timeline goes, and actually tell you what, we'll do a quick sneak peek. I'll pull it over. So I'm making the timeline just in, this is Google Slides. But let's see, I've got 5. Yeah, I've almost finished with page 5. And I think we're probably going to be about end of page 5. I think we'll probably get through page 7. But basically this timeline takes us all the way from first manned spaceflight in 1961. And it's going to take us to to the late 2400s, which will be current year in the universe of Give Them Hope. And so there's going to be a bunch of key events, or there are a bunch of key events mentioned in this timeline. And I decided to take a brief break away from my sort of game design document, where I'm writing the prologue, and then I'll have a glossary of terms, and then I'll also be fleshing out the different gameplay mechanics. So you have like a prologue talking about how it introduces you to the setting, and your character and the other main characters, but then also a glossary of terms to familiarize you with the universe. But then that will also be linked into sort of like, kind of like if you go to a Steam page on the Steam app to look at a game, and they talk about the different features and gameplay mechanics, that will be in there as well. And so I'll have we'll have the timeline to give you sort of the setting, because it is within our universe, along with that document that I'm continuing to work on. And then the artist that I'm working with is working on concept art, currently working on the Alliance Marine ship Nassau, which is essentially an assault ship expeditionary base for the Alliance Marines. And then we're also going to be working on some character art, concept art for other ships. But then the other big project that I want him to help me with is making a star map, in order to ground us in the universe and where we are, and just as a concept. So I've been having a lot of fun with the project, a lot of fun with Mustang 6, working on the art side of it. But if you think that's interesting, I've got 2 episodes already up on my YouTube. I'm talking about what I've been writing and reading some of it, and talking about how the game mechanics, how the lore and the gameplay are tied together. I've created lore that explains how things work in the game, how you transition between star systems, how you travel across star systems, how the ships work, why combat is the way it is, why the game mechanics are the way they are. Everything from the faster than light drive, which goes about 2C, to the sort of jump gate network, which I'm calling the Nexus bridge, the Nexus drive. The shields have a name and an explanation for their technology. How energy is made. Talked about with the main alien antagonist in the game. I'm still working on how I want to write out the other 2 alien factions, where humanity is, and what our sort of system of government looks like, and how society is nowadays. A lot of really interesting stuff. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to be going over this timeline and how it relates to the rest of the world. I'll be finishing up page 5, 6, and 7. And so to get us caught up, and I'll probably add a few more things here and there later, but this is sort of the basic foundation for the universe, especially in relation to what I've already been writing. But yeah, so that's what I'll be doing tomorrow during while Boone, my son, naps, and that's going to be what I'm going to be streaming tomorrow night. The next Pathfinders podcast will be next Tuesday. I have a work event Monday night, so I can't do it then, and Naz is all booked up this week. But next Tuesday, Nazarus and I are going to cover the letter from the chairman, especially in how it relates to the server meshing tests that we already had and the one coming up this weekend. And I am planning on testing this weekend, so I'll hopefully be able to stream that. And we'll also be getting caught up on the roadmap roundups for February and March, because we haven't covered any of them, but getting all caught up through that point and talking about everything. So it'll be a little bit of a long episode next Tuesday, but the event is listed in my Discord, and I'll post about it on Twitter. But yeah, so thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope you guys all have a good night, 07, and cheers.